Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is that you are listening, folks. Thank you very, very much for listening. Date today is the 31st of May, year of our Lord 2024. Welcome to yet another edition of The Coping Hour, hosted by Nicholas Hinkle, a.k.a. Motown Noah. Got a nice Friday show for you guys today, taping this actually at halftime of Game 5 between Dallas and Minnesota. Gonna be honest with you guys, I'm kind of thinking that this one might be over. I'm hoping it doesn't age poorly. Maybe by the end of this episode, you guys will kind of have a real-time reaction of but honestly, that's not really what I'm here to talk about today. No matter what happens in this game, it's not that I don't care, but we're saving, even if Dallas wins this, a finals preview, so to speak. We're saving that for Monday's show. And if Minnesota does somehow pull this game off, they look dead in the water at halftime. We'll address it in real time, not in real time, but we'll address everything that needs to be addressed on Monday's show. Because the truth here is we got so many emails this week, so much so that I was like, how do I turn this off? I was like, how do I turn the email off? Because I had no idea how to sort of sift through everything, and I responded to like 15 of you guys, and if I didn't respond to you, it wasn't because I didn't want to, it was just because I was very overwhelmed, I was very stimulated, but on the heels of Monday's episode, which got very real, it got very raw, it got very emotional, I just want to say off the rip here, I won't be able to express to all of you how much it means to me, the support and the love and the kindness that you all showed me when I had a very open moment with all of you. So from the bottom of my heart, if I wasn't able to get to any of your comments or any of your emails, just know I read it. I read every word of it, and I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful to have cultivated. I don't like referring to you guys as an audience because I think it's a little bit grander than that. I think this is more of a. I don't really know how I would quantify it, but it means a lot to me, and it is not lost on me how valuable your time is. And the fact that you give me 2 hours every single week means a lot to me. And the fact that you would go above and beyond to extend some kind words to me, again, it's not lost on me what that means. So thank you very, very much. I wanted to do something fun today because we got so many emails, and we're going to read a decent number of them. It's been a while since we've done an edition of Things I Saw This Week. And if you're new around here, if you're new to the Coping Hour, Things I Saw This Week is literally just like an aggregate of things that I saw while I was scrolling Reddit. And I was like, ooh, that could be fun to talk about on the show. And so why don't we jump in with one that I've lasered in on? And I don't know if the zeitgeist has put a pin in this at all. So if they have, and I'm presenting this as if it's a new idea, I do in some form apologize for that. But I haven't seen anybody talk about it. So Mark Cuban's going to run for president, right? I'm not talking about this year. I'm not. But in 2028, he's 100% going to run for president. That's where we all are. Let's talk about it for a second. Nick, what are you talking about? Well, to me, he's just kind of, I should let you guys know this. I received some very, very, very devastating news today, and right before tip-off, I was like, I need to relax a little bit, so I had a few beers. So if I get a little crazy today and we do some off-road podcasting, just put your seatbelts on right now, okay? So, and just bear with me and stay with me. So Mark Cuban and this whole president thing, to me, he's just following the Trump 2015 playbook, only Mark Cuban is doing it in a more 4D chess way. So when Trump ran for president in 2016 and obviously did get elected, one of the first things that he had to do when he wanted to get on the ballot was they were like, well, you need to sell all of your private businesses. You need to cut ties with like The Apprentice. You need to take your name off of the lease of Trump Tower and all this stuff. And he was like, okay. And he did everything that he needed to do. He separated himself from TV. His contract dissolved. There's been a rumor out there for a few years. Who was the partner for The Apprentice? It was NBC, right? That his contract was up and he only ran for president as like a leverage poll so that he could show the network how valuable his name and his brand was, and then he fucked around and actually won the presidency. That is a rumor, but who knows how true? We're never going to know if that's actually true. But for all intents and purposes, he had to cut ties with all of the private businesses and enterprises that his name was attached to. Okay, and so then he decided he wanted to run for president. And then you look at a guy like Mark Cuban, and you're like, okay, so the guy who the Dallas Mavericks for 20 plus years have been his baby, like his child. More than anything else that he does, it's the Dallas Mavericks over everything. Okay, even if he wouldn't admit that, it definitely feels like that's true. Okay, so he just kind of up and sells them out of nowhere in the middle of the night. He sells a majority stake in the team, and and there still hasn't really been a reason. We still haven't really heard too much about why exactly that is. Anytime you hear about details, it's really only if you go looking for them, you go digging for them. And then on top of that, what does he do? Magically retires from Shark Tank. And you're going to say, well, Nick, he's been on that show for 10 plus years, maybe 15 years. I don't know how long Shark Tank's been on the air, but Mark Cuban's been on that show for a while. And for a lot of people, he's the reason they tune in. If it's not him, it's Mr. Wonderful. If it's not Mr. Wonderful, it's Damon. It's not Damon John. That's not his name, right? But it's him, right? Okay, so Mark Cuban no longer on TV, selling all of the business interests that he has a controlling stake in. I'm just not convinced that this guy's not going to fucking run for president. And some of you are going to flock to the comments and you're going to say, well, Nick, in the past, he said that he believes that he can enact more change as a citizen than he could in a position of power. I think two things can be true here. Rare moment at the Coping Hour that two things can actually be true. One, that is a very honest reflection of one's self, because I think too often do you see people believing that they could hold a position of power and make legitimate change that would be for the betterment of the 333 million Americans that we have living in this country. When in reality, as soon as they took the chair, it would be like fascism immediately. Whether they mean to be or not, that is exactly what it would be. I can say that's probably, I don't want to say, oh, I would devolve into fascism. That's not what I want to say. Although a couple episodes ago, we did talk about this a little bit. And I was like, state-run media, we're jailing people. I've talked about this ad nauseum at this point. I don't want it for our reoccurring listeners. I don't want to keep doing this spiel with you guys. But for all intents and purposes, you know. And then, but the second thing that's true is he's fucking lying. How about that? How does that one taste? That Mark Cuban is a fucking liar and he's probably going to run for president in 2028. Now, the second thing that I wanted to talk about this week, it's been a big week for like small news, although I don't know if this is small. Now, for our baseball fans out there who listen to the show, who have been starved for baseball content, because it's not exactly what we do on here, we got an email here from Andy that we're going to read in just a second, copingoursubs@gmail.com, spelled phonetically. The email will be available in the description wherever it is that you listen to this show. Angel Hernandez, the infamous umpire, has officially retired after, 30 years in the game. Like, I don't know, for our non-baseball watchers out there, there is not an umpire in the history of the sport that is more refuted than him. And I'm not a baseball head, so I can't exactly think of things off the top of my head and be like, point to and be like, this thing, he did this thing, he did this thing, he did this thing. I can't do that. But just know, everybody hates this guy. All the players hated this guy. All the managers hated this guy. Even the broadcasters would give him shit. All of the baseball writers. And I don't think there's a sport in America where the writers are more involved than in baseball and more opinionated than in baseball. Everybody detested this guy. Angel Hernandez finally retiring from umpiring in the major league. Is that effective immediately? I haven't seen any communication on that. I'm assuming it's effective immediately, because otherwise, at the end of the year is maybe what the phrasing would be on that. We got an email here from Andy. Andy, welcome to the show. Subject line, Angel Hernandez Legacy Talk. Dear Nick, longtime fan, first-time emailer. And then parenthetically, they wrote 62205 for the measurables. Do you listen to Rosillo? Is that what this is? Is that what you're doing here? I don't want to bite off of him. That's funny if you are a Rosillo head, but okay, back to the email. Today, Tuesday, May 28th, year of our Lord, 2024, Angel Hernandez is retiring from the game of baseball, effective immediately. Oh, wow. Andy, thank you for letting me know. In maybe the most thank you, Jesus moment in recent baseball memory, I have a couple of questions about the ripple effects of Hernandez's absence, that the absence of Hernandez creates. First, will the credibility of umpires in the MLB get a boost with the poster child of bad umps finally hanging up the uniform? Second, who in the NBA referee network would you say is on or closest to par with Angel Hernandez. Kindest regards, Andy. Andy, thank you for the email. This is a fantastic one. So for the first thing, does this do anything for, like, does this kind of put umpires in the good graces of baseball fans? No, it doesn't. People are, until it actually happens and it actually materializes, people are going to want robo-umps. And I don't think I actually don't know this, so somebody in the comments will let me know. Is the baseball purist view on this that they don't want robot umps? Because those are the same people who hate, like, the pitch clock, and they hate, do they hate the pickoff rule? I don't know about that, but they hate all of these new rules that have been implemented. So it seems like robo-umps would be that would also be something that they hate. For some reason, I do too, because I get tricked. And I always say to myself, no, human error is part of baseball. For some reason, I don't know why that has been programmed in our brains as like whose propaganda is that? Is that from, like, the Umpires Association? Is that what that is? I don't know where that comes from. No, I don't think that is going to be a thing. But the second question is, who is the quintessential embodiment of Angel Hernandez as it pertains to the NBA? There might only be one answer. I think it would have been Joey Crawford, who has since retired. He retired a couple of years ago. If there was a dude who is still refereeing in the NBA, we did talk about him an episode or two ago. I think it's Tony Brothers. If it's not Tony Brothers, it's Scott Foster, the series extender, as he were. But other than that, because Tony Brothers Jeff Teague told a story. I don't really remember how it went. I think the story very loosely was like Jeff Teague was, like, kind of in his infancy in the league, and he had his family sitting courtside, and they were like, oh, Jeff Teague. They were cheering on Jeff Teague, because they were like his mom and his sister, his, like, family. And Tony Brothers was like, who are these bad bitches that you got sitting courtside? Like, what the fuck is their deal? And he's like, that's my fucking mom. Like, what the fuck is your problem? Tony Brothers was like, fuck you, I hate you. Something like that. Very loosely, that's what happened. And so Tony Brothers always yapping, gets in his feels a lot. It was funny the other night in the Timberwolves-Mavs game 4. Was that the game that Cat fouled out? I believe that's the game that it was. If that's what it was the foul that, like, that was it. It was number 6 for Cat. And you just read his lips, and he's like, Scott, no, Scott. And it's always very funny to me to think of these players, like, first naming the officials, because I don't know, like, I'm just thinking of me in, like, youth sports and, like, high school sports, and obviously we don't know the refs, we don't know the officials, and so it's like Mr. and Sir and shit like that. Scott, like, no, you're tossed out of the game if you first name these refs. Granted, you would have been like a 9-year-old first name. What am I talking about right now? You know what I would say? Andy, I hope you agree with me on this, or maybe not agree with me, but you understand where I'm coming from, like, just as a man. People can say whatever they want about Angel Hernandez. Say whatever they want about that man. To me, a Detroit sports fan, the worst umpire in the history of baseball was and is, I don't know if he's still in the league umpiring, Jim Joyce. Jim Joyce has a special place in hell reserved for him because at this point, when was the Armando Galarraga 28-out perfect game? 2011? 13 years ago? For those of you who don't know, again, don't care about baseball, Armando Galarraga, Detroit Tigers pitcher, threw a perfect game. He threw a perfect game, and on the 27th out, recorded the out, but Jim Joyce called the base runner safe. He was out by a step. He was out by a step, and instant replay across the board, it wasn't just baseball, just wasn't really part of it wasn't a thing. It hadn't been implemented yet in Major League Baseball. So there was nothing we could do. He calls the runner safe, and all you could really do was sit there and just bitch about it, And then later that night, Jim Joyce goes in front of a microphone, and you give him credit for this. He owned it immediately. He did not horseshit his way around it at all. He was like, I kicked the shit out of that call. He was like, that's on me. He was crying in the media talking about it because he's like, I just robbed that dude of, I think at the time there had only been like 26 or 27 perfect games. It didn't happen. Maybe I messed that up, but it didn't happen. It's a perfect game, and you robbed Armando Galarraga of that. And so the next day they threw out, it was a day game, and they threw out Armando Galarraga to give the lineup card to Jim Joyce, and the city of Detroit gave Galarraga like a free Camaro or some bullshit as like a, hey, sorry about your perfect game that didn't happen. Keep in mind, the next batter that came up, they did record the out. So that's why we call it the only 28-out perfect game in the history of Major League Baseball. And I've argued that whole incident happening is probably better for the legacy than him actually getting the perfect game. Because more people, like you could say, at this point, how many X amount of perfect games that have happened in Major League Baseball. You can't name all of them, but what you can name is the guy who did get one, but the record books don't reflect it because he didn't get it at the end of the day. He didn't get it. Why? Because Jim Joyce kicked the shit out of that call. So Angel Hernandez, rest in peace. People can say whatever they want about Joe Biden not getting the hostages out of there, but he did get Angel Hernandez out of baseball. That's something that Trump couldn't do. It's something that Obama couldn't do. It's something that Bush couldn't do. It's something that Clinton couldn't do. So shout out to Dark Brandon for that. Another thing that I saw this week, have you seen this? Have you heard about this? The stealth word out there, seemingly that JJ Redick will be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm already forgetting where this report came from. I think it was like Stephen A. just yapping on whatever show it was. And whoever it was, I think it was him. He's like, what we're hearing right now is that it's a matter of crossing some T's and dotting some I's. And that JJ behind the scenes is, making some phone calls to some potential assistant coaches, trying to assemble the proverbial Avengers. I might have a lot to say about this, but it might be very jumbled. So please give me the next 5 minutes. Just stay with me. We will get where I want to go. This is where I need you all to put your seatbelts on. Off-road podcasting mode engaged. Okay, so JJ Redick wants to be a head coach. The Lakers are interested in having him as a head coach. Clutch is like, yeah, that's our guy. LeBron is like, yeah, that's our guy. It makes sense that JJ wants to get into the role. Okay, so broadcasting implications aside, I don't know who fills that role. That's not what we're here to talk about right now. That's Monday's episode, potentially, depending on how this segment's received. Okay, JJ Redick is the head coach. Well, I feel a few things about this. One, as a guy who is tired of the oversaturation of JJ Redick in my media, this is good because I think you'll be hard-pressed to find him podcasting when he's coaching a basketball team. I don't know if it's not necessarily a conflict of interest, but it's a time thing. He doesn't have fucking time for that. What's Tommy Alter going to do? Jesus Christ. What is that guy going to do? Is he going to be okay? Is he going to be on the bench? Is he going to be an assistant coach? Jesus, could you imagine? But I feel for him a little bit. I'm a little bit empathetic because in 2024, more than it has ever been, an NBA head coach 85 to 90% of the time is about one thing. It's about managing egos. It's about babysitting. It's also about scapegoating, is what it is. And so you mean to tell me that a 40-year-old LeBron-led Los Angeles Lakers team brings JJ Redick in as if he's supposed to do what? As if he's supposed to do what? And when LeBron ends up signing whatever contract he ends up signing with these Lakers, maybe they draft Bronny, which is, again, that's a whole other thing. We'll talk about that a different day. They draft Bronny. They do whatever they can to make him happy, and that includes bringing on JJ Redick as your head coach. So what happens when they win 41 games? What happens with the next year when they win 38 games because LeBron is fucking 42 years old? And now we have to reconcile with the fact that JJ Redick is our head coach. We don't have shit else going on. LeBron either went to a different team or flat out retired. All this does, to me, is damage his reputation. The good graces, and imagine that. Imagine it. Because the pendulum of JJ Redick's career has swung in so many different directions. You talk about this guy, 20 years ago when he was at Duke? And he was public enemy number one. Like quintessential, by the way, Dallas is up by 33. Like quintessential Duke guy that everybody hated. And then he gets to the NBA and he kind of, of course we're gonna say Steph Curry was the one who ushered in this new era. But when you talk about of three-point shooting, but when you talk about the guys on the margins and the role players whose jobs were to come in, knock down shots from 27 feet, cut to the basket, boom, like execute some dribble handoffs and get the fuck out of there. JJ Redick. Okay, I never had a problem with JJ Redick as an NBA player, only because my introduction to him wasn't Orlando, it was Lob City. Okay, I remember when JJ Redick randomly shows up one day and he's got all these tattoos, and we said, who the fuck is this? I had no qualms with JJ Redick as a player. And then he started getting into audio. He got into the media. JJ Redick starts a podcast, and we're all like, who is this? We were like, what? And we were like, huh. JJ Redick ends up becoming what? The darling of NBA media? Just to do what? Just to take a head coaching job that has the risk reward here I'm just not seeing, right? Because if you really wanted to take a head coaching job, you're going to get it eventually. And is it worth having it on your resume that you coached a LeBron-led team to like a first-round exit, to like a play-in spot? I'm just not seeing it for him, because now what's going to happen is when this doesn't work, if these reports are true and the stealth word is true that JJ Redick is going to be the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, and it is an inevitability at this point, what have we seen with LeBron coaches in the last 20 years? What have we learned? Who's the one that worked out? Well, I'd say there were two. Hell, were there kind of sneaky three? Mike Brown did end up having a career. David Blatt, who the fuck knows where he is? Probably somewhere in like Chechnya. Does that still exist? Some Chechnyan little fucker's gonna be like, yeah, Chechnya still exists. I think it does, right? I'd have no idea. Okay, Tyronn Lue, that worked out. Eric Spoelstra, God, did that one work out? But we know how this goes with LeBron coaches. He's a coach killer, okay? The problem could not conceivably be me, LeBron James. It's obviously the coach who's leading us astray. So, like, all that's going to happen is he's going to get vilified. And this is what I mean by actually, I don't even think I said this. It's bittersweet for me. Because as somebody who's oversaturated by JJ Redick in the media, and I know so many of you out there are going to be like, what the fuck is your problem? JJ Redick is awesome. Exactly. So what's going to happen when everybody talks about how much of a shithead he is because he couldn't win the Lakers a championship, because he couldn't win a championship with LeBron James on his team? Nobody's going to contextualize it. They're just not. So again, I'm not seeing the risk reward here if I'm JJ Redick. It certainly seems all risk, no reward. And, you know, we mentioned the broadcast thing. Oh, who do we think is the replacement for JJ Redick on that team? I'm not sure, but did you guys, Dallas up by almost 40 at this point. Did you guys know that Kevin Hart does a simulcast during the ABC games? I learned that like a week ago. I had no idea. And so I started thinking to myself, I was like, when does that bubble burst? And I'm asking this very genuinely, similar to when I was like, hey, has everybody ever done the thing where like Verizon's like, ooh, change your phone plan to us and you get a new smartphone, new tablet, new watch? And some of you were like, yes, actually, I have done that. Here's a new question for you guys. I'm not talking about the Manning cast. I understand that people watch the Peyton Manning, Eli Manning simulcast during Monday Night Football. People do watch that. I don't need to lie. Do any of you watch any other ones, though? I don't know if there's a worse piece of content, honestly, in the world. I used to work, it was during COVID, and I was working for a digital media company technically not based, but they had an office here in Chicago. And I got paid like $100 a stream. Is that how much it was? Yeah, roughly that's what it was. It was during the bubble when they were in Disney. Remember the game where OG Anunoby hit that game-winning three? I want to say it was against the Celtics, but it was Toronto. I don't think they were playing the Celtics, but it definitely might have been the Celtics. We were doing a simulcast for that game. I still to this day have no idea what the viewership numbers were for that, but I can tell you right now, that might be, it's just gotta be the laziest and the most desperate piece of content out there. Are you guys watching? And it's no shade to Kevin Hart. The Kevin Hart Kai Cenat stream was legitimately one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Okay, I love Kevin Hart. No notes. But what the fuck, man? If by 2030, no, I don't even need to say by 2030. By 2027, I don't think simulcasts are going to be a thing anymore. I just don't think they are, because I don't think they add enough. And again, the Peyton and Eli thing just feels different because those two dudes are. I don't watch it. I refuse to ever watch it because I actually believe that it's the same bullshit. But I recognize that people do actually like that because of who they are as individuals, right? It would, like, again, it's not about Kevin Hart, but it's like, what if you got an actual fucking guy? I don't know. Maybe the Kevin Hart thing's funny. Maybe I should check into it. But it's different. It's just not the same thing. It's not the same picture.jpg. Now, I do want to say this, and we're going to pivot to something maybe a little bit more serious here. We talk about broadcasting. I believe it was on Monday's episode. I push publish. It's out there. And after a couple hours, a report comes across my desk that it really devastated me. And Bill Walton passed away. And when you talk about somebody who was willing to, how do you describe him? The guy who was willing to get lost in his own thoughts and just riff and just devolve whatever he was calling into like his own little world, tell his own little stories, and just be unapologetically himself as a human being while uplifting seemingly everybody who could listen to him because of the passion that he had for what was in front of him. The love that he had, not just for the game, not just for himself, but truly for the world. And Bill Walton is one of those guys that isn't just irreplaceable. Man, there's never going to be somebody like him on a human and from his perspective, on a spiritual level. Bill Walton was a one of one. He was one of a kind, and man, that really bummed me out. And in some way, and I apologize if this comes off wrong, but you'll know what I mean. You know that Bill Walton passes away right when the Pac-12 dissolves. I don't want to say I wouldn't have it any other way, but I didn't want to listen to Bill Walton call a Minnesota-UCLA game. The Pac-12 was his pride and joy. That's what he loved, man. And so for him to pass away in the year that the Pac-12 goes out, damn if that doesn't make sense, right? And we got an email here that I really wanted to read. It came into us from Noah. Noah, welcome to the show. Hey, Nick, longtime fan of the show. I've been watching since your original Detroit Pistons videos, but have never emailed in. I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate sharing. Well, let me just speed ahead to what you wanted to talk about here. I've been having a rough morning because Bill Walton passed away. In addition to being a great basketball player, he was also a family friend. Bill was someone I looked up to and was genuinely one of the most giving and generous people I've ever met. He told me when I was 12 that if I passed the ball on my middle school basketball team, I should shoot it every time because it's actually more fun that way. And if my coach had a problem with it, Bill said that I could give him his number. When I ran a charity auction for a class in college, he donated his time to tell stories about his career. He also introduced my dad to me and Bill Russell before he passed away, which, as lifelong Celtics and NBA fans, was a top 5 memory of my entire life. I understand how Jason Tatum must have felt when Kobe passed away. If someone swiped up on my Instagram story memorializing Bill Walton and told me I didn't really know him, I would literally rip them limb from limb. Now, if you're like, that seems like it's out of left field. In the previous episode, we talked about how anybody who talks a certain way about the way that Jason Tatum memorializes Kobe in his own way, when people shit on him for that, you're a fucking loser. You're weird. I believe that's kind of what he's going for here. So back to the email here. I'm 23, and I can't imagine what you're going through having a kid right now. I still feel like I have so much to figure out about myself. I know it must be challenging trying to navigate your own life, career, and relationship while also trying to put someone else first. And I'll leave out the rest here. But I just thought that was a very beautiful and touching eulogy to Bill Walton from somebody who knew him personally, right? Something that I'm sure a lot of us wish we could have, because there really just wasn't anybody like him. And the NBA lost a fantastic person, the broadcasting world. And who the fuck am I supposed to listen to with Dave Pasch now? You know, who am I supposed to listen to call a UCLA Oregon game now? Who is that supposed to be? Dave Pasch, sure, but man, that was just what Bill Walton was built for, and that was a damn shame. So Bill Walton, rest in peace. That one hurt. Let's move on to something else, ladies and gentlemen. I was doing a mental exercise, and I was thinking to myself, first of all, it's weird that the Pistons just haven't announced Trajan Langdon as the official president of basketball operations. I believe it's because the language in the Woj tweet was like they've zeroed in on him as the guy, and they're just kind of ironing out the details, crossing some T's, dotting some I's. You know how it goes. Us outside of the industry, we don't know how it goes, but of course they know how it goes. Ooh. Not to sound like I'm from fucking Planet of the Apes, but here's something I wanted to. When JB Bickerstaff got fired, you guys notice anything about how it was phrased? I love how agents work, man. JB Bickerstaff was not fired. He was dismissed. He was not fired, folks. He was dismissed. Why that shit matters, 89-61 Dallas, by the way. Why that shit matters is hilarious to me. I guess JB Bickerstaff can sleep well at night knowing that he was not in fact fired. He was dismissed. Get your facts straight. Don't be fake news. Speaking of fake news, I was talking to producer extraordinaire Rudy St. Clair today. That was an unintentional rhyme. I do that from time to time. Dr. Seuss in this news. And we were talking about, you know how on Twitter, and I'm not on there anymore, but I always see the screenshots of this. So there are always these like fake accounts where you have like the NBA Central, which is just an aggregate account of, other shit. They don't break anything, but they're just a quote unquote legitimate aggregate out there. And then you have like the fake alternative, which is like, and their handle is like NBA Central, where it's like they just leave out one letter, but they still have the blue check. They use the same picture, all this bullshit, so that they can pump like fake quotes and fake aggregate stories to like get people. And how that's a very common thing in the last like 6 to 8 years on social media. Another one is like technically ball sack sports. For those of you who are not familiar with ball sack sports, yes, that is a real thing. I guess it's a real thing. And Rudy and I were talking about it in this age of disinformation on the internet and how we're going to look back on it. What are we going to call it? Because when you think of the last few years, we talk about that time frame, 6 to 8 years, and you think like, listen, man, we've all been got by a fake Woj tweet. We've all been there, fake Shams tweet over the years, and that was because people got very creative with how they would make like a fake check mark, because the pre-Elon Twitter, well, I guess just when it was Twitter and not X, that blue check like meant something. Like as long as you saw that, you were like, okay, this is probably credible. Like probably this is credible. You could kind of forego a lot of investigation just by the blue check, because in a lot of ways it was like an honest reflection of credibility and reliability as far as journalism went. And a lot of that went out the window as soon as Elon made it like a pay-to-win scheme where you could just pay to have the blue check, and that's how these like fake aggregate accounts can kind of get away with a bunch of this shit. And it makes it a lot harder for people to discern what is real, quote unquote, and what is not real. And I think a lot of that is because media literacy, at the risk of sounding hyperbolic, is at an all-time fucking low, where people refuse to look even one layer deeper than they need to, because it's like an instant gratification thing, and people get the information that they are looking for or that they didn't know that they were looking for, and then boom, it's off to the races. That's how these people make their money. Quite literally, that's how these people make their money, right? And so Rudy and I were talking about it, and we were like, what is this going to be called, right? Because it's not gotcha journalism. When you think of gotcha journalism, that's like Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, going to a college campus and cherry picking a bunch of 18, 19-year-old freshmen and being like, what is gender? And like asking them some that's not a question, but you know what I mean? Like asking them some bullshit questions that they're like, what the fuck? And then like trapping them, right? That's some gotcha shit. And it's not that. It's not that. And I figured it out. It's made you look journalism. That's exactly what it is. Because these people, aggregating is one of the oldest forms of journalism that is very profitable. Not very profitable, but in 2024, it's not as profitable as it was like 20 years ago. Even 10 years ago, it was like, meh. It's like, meh. Like 5 years ago, I don't know, man. Aggregators are the lifeblood of the internet. At the end of the day, secondhand information is consumed way more than firsthand when you really think about it, and when you think about where you get most of your news and where you read about most shit. Usually it's from an aggregate. And I'm saying that, I worked as one for like 2 or 3 years, and that's how I know there's not that much money in it. There's not that much money in it because of how hard you have to work, to make, because a lot of that shit's based on page views. I mean, all of it is, right? And so depending on the blog that you were working for, I wrote for 2 of them at separate points. And, if you were getting like 40,000 page views, I don't know, that would give you like $200-$300. Like that's a lot, man. And that's hard. And that's when it devolves into, and I would say this principle applies. Matter of fact, this principle applies to YouTube creators too. There's nothing that irks me more than people who make content for their viewers and not for themselves. You've lost me at that point. I do not trust you as a creator. You do not have my respect, and you damn sure do not deserve my time or attention. And I beg and implore all of you to hold this same principle very near and dear to your heart. As soon as somebody starts making content for you and what you want to see, and making titles what you want to see, because they know that you can't possibly resist clicking on this. Like, you have to click on this. Pump the brakes. Record scratch freeze frame. You're probably wondering how I got here. I didn't. I'm not there. I'm watching a different video. And aggregating is that, where you have to find the most compelling, the most juicy headline that you can possibly find in order to get people to click on it. I think the lowest that I ever stooped in that medium, mock drafts, because it's easy. If if there's any of you out there writing for some your favorite sports team blog, mock drafts are SEO gold mines. And that's the other thing that you got to get in with is, these the SEO, Google's SEO, and these algorithms and shit like that. And as a matter of fact, we actually got an email. We got an email probably like, gee whiz, at this point, was it like a month ago? I say a month ago. I meant to say a week ago. Yeah, it was on Saturday. This one comes into us from Greg. I'm gonna go somewhere with this. I think I might not, Greg. So we'll see. This one's about gambling. We've talked a fair bit about gambling on this show. I don't know if there's too much more that we have to say about it. I think we're all more or less on the same page with where it's at. Specifically just in America, because to be honest, we don't know that much about it outside of America until now, because Greg has some insider information for us. Let's get to the email. Greg, welcome to the show. copingoursubs@gmail.com, spelled phonetically. Email will be available in the description wherever you listen to the show. Email is always available in the description of wherever you listen to this. Hello, Mr. Hinkle. Firstly, big fan of the show. All right, we'll move past this. Thank you for all of this, though. I just wanted to give my perspective on sports gambling to the nation of America, as I seem to be hearing a lot about it in various podcasts currently. I am British. Ooh, should I be doing an accent for this? Hold on. There's going to be some dead air for a second. I'm going to move away to see if I can do an impromptu. I just wanted to give my perspective on sports gambling to the nation of America, as I seem to be hearing a lot about it in No, I don't want to do this. Okay. I am British, and as far as I'm aware, sports gambling has only recently become a mainstream thing in your country. Legally, Greg, this is true. Legally, I'm not going to cut you off. Okay. A lot of people are currently talking about how to prevent sports gambling addictions in America, and this has been a conversation in the UK forever. Some context about gambling in the UK. One, gambling has been mainstream in this country since my forever. It is almost ingrained in our culture. Every weekend, middle-aged men pour into bookies and gamble half their paycheck away and spend the other half in the pub. It has been this way forever. And like in the US, it is moving online. It seems as if we only watch sports to gamble. Number two, gambling has been advertised here forever with no restrictions. In the last 10 years, betting companies have been forced to use a slogan, quote, when the fun stops, stop, unquote, in all their ads. But my main takeaway from this slogan is that it's basically always in the corner of the screen and is brushed over. And the only word that is really visible is the word fun in sparkly, bold letters. Russell Howard did a good comedy sketch on it maybe 10 years ago now, and everything in it still applies. Either way, I feel 50% of the ads during sports are gambling companies, and the other half is beer. Three, like the USA, online betting is now the main way most people bet. Even my late grandfather used to sit in front of the TV and bet on horses on his phone every day during his retirement. Online betting, I feel, has made gambling addictions even more prevalent, and I see many of my friends putting far too much money on stupid bets. The point I am trying to get here is very long-winded, but I do think this is important. The point I am trying to get at here is gambling has been around forever in the UK and in Europe, and no matter how hard you try, it does not go away. People will forever try to put it in preventative methods, which are great, yes, but still so many people can become addicted, and there is sadly a link between gambling addictions and domestic abuse. I fear that betting will only become worse in America as more people get involved. I'm gonna cut it off there. Greg, I think you've made some very compelling points here, and I think it added a very unique and international perspective to what I think we are dealing with here in America. Because like I said at the beginning when I cut off your email, recently, in recent years, yes, it's become a grander part of the zeitgeist because more individual states are legalizing it. It is not federally legal. And like when I was living in California, it got put on the ballot for the midterms, and it got killed because it was something about the rev split that the state was like, fuck no, this sucks. And so it got killed. But like I live in Illinois and Chicago, it is very legal here. There are sports books I could go to if I wanted to. It's legal in Michigan, which is my home, my actual home. And, there's some sports books I could go to there. These companies know how to prey on people who lose. And that's what they want. They want the losers. They want you to lose as much as you possibly can. And they know the language that they need to use in order to make you lose as much as you possibly can. They know what deals to put out. We've talked on this show ad nauseum about, they put call the number, call 1-800-GAMBLER. They do that as a formality, but what else we love to say on this show is very famously, nobody with a gambling addiction will ever acknowledge that they have a gambling addiction, and it's for legal reasons that they put those phone numbers up there. I would love to, we talk about, hey, I would love some listener feedback here. None of you motherfuckers have ever called that number. Let's do something real quick. I want to see. I can't ask you guys to do this. Does someone want to call the number and report back? Lie to them. And I just want to know, whoa, is that a fun thing to, okay, this is impromptu. Hold on. There's going to be some dead air. I'm not going to cut this. Gambling addiction hotline. I'm serious. Let's call this in real time. I don't know if I want to do this.
Thank you for calling the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline. All callers looking for counseling services or problem gambling resources, please continue to hold. This is not a general information line for lottery winnings or casino information. All calls are recorded for quality purposes. If you do not want your call recorded, please inform
I'm recording
the
it.
representative. If you have a dispute with an online casino or sports betting platform, please visit the Michigan Gaming Control Board website at www.michigan.gov.
Stay with me. It's okay. We'll stay with me, folks.
Dispute. If this is an emergency requiring in-the-moment responsiveness, please hang up and dial 911.
3 rings. What the fuck? How many rings?
Hello, and thank you for your call.
What the fuck?
Before being connected to a specialist, we need to share some information about data privacy and service confidentiality. Your privacy is very important to us. We do not disclose your use of our services to anyone without your consent.
How many hoops do I have to jump through to get to a fucking real person? This is crazy.
At risk of harm or when required by law. We need your consent to share the details of our conversation with members of our global service delivery staff and or with third-party associates on need-to-know basis, some of whom may be located outside of your country. Our complete data use and privacy guidelines, including your rights, are available online at www.resourcesforyourlife.com/privacy-policy. All calls are recorded.
If I'm having a crisis
purposes, unless you request
and I'm on the phone for 2 minutes, I can't talk to a Okay.
Michigan Gambling Helpline. My name is Cuban. I'm a counselor. How may I help you?
Okay, I hung up the phone. It took 2.5 minutes to actually get to somebody. I'm not convinced that wasn't a fucking AI voice, but it was a real person, definitely. But, like, it took 2 minutes to get to... I kind of wish I actually said something. There you go, folks. Gambling is horseshit in this country. Thank you very much for the email. Again, adding some international perspective. I guess we learned something, that you gotta do some Cirque du Soleil shit in order to actually hear from somebody if you are having a gambling crisis. How did we get here? I wanted to talk about Trajan Langdon. And, not to sidetrack myself again, I usually don't like to respond to people who leave mean comments on the show, because it, to me, comes off as bitter and, like, really uncomfortable, and it's like, really, you're going to spend time talking to one person when, like, most people actually really enjoy what you're doing? It always rubs me the wrong way when people do that. I do need to call something out. Somebody, because I fucked up the pronunciation of Trajan Langdon last week, and somebody left a comment on Spotify, and they're like, actually, and I claimed that normally I'm very good at pronouncing names, because I do believe that I am. Somebody left a comment, and it was like, actually, after you kept pronouncing Asar Thompson as Auser Thompson last year, I don't think you get to say that. Motherfucker, run the tape. That shit was not me. That shit was James. Screen record that shit. Send it into copinghoursubs@gmail.com, spelled phonetically. Email available in the description wherever you're listening to the show. And motherfucker, I know you're listening on Spotify. I know exactly what you're talking about. That shit was James. It was not me. I can pronounce like a motherfucker. Trajan Langdon is in Detroit. Okay, cool. Waiting for them to announce that. So here's my question. Is Brad Holmes to Jared Goff as Trajan Langdon is to Brandon Ingram? And if there's any big swing that Detroit wants to do this year, and folks, I don't know if you've been able to deduce this. I don't give a shit about what they do this summer. And some of you even emailed, got a couple emails in today, actually, specifically, about that kid from Bowling Green that's averaging like literally 0 points a game on like 12% shooting. And it turns out he's Tom Gore's nephew. Tom Gore's his uncle. And so people are like, oh, are the Pistons going to spend a second-round pick on him? First of all, I fucking dare them. Second of all, don't be surprised if this kid gets a summer league team or a summer league roster spot. Don't let that bother you. If he does, that's not real. That's not a real thing. You don't give a shit about the summer league. Who cares? Like, if the Motor City Cruise gave me a tryout, right? I guess that's not the same because I didn't have any family inside of the organization. Like, that shit's not real. It doesn't matter. He can get a G League or a summer league spot, and I don't care. If they do draft this motherfucker, I'm throwing hands. Somebody's gonna die for sure. But it's not gonna, like, whatever. Give this guy a 2-way contract. Last few years, motherfucking Buddy Boeheim and this kid. What bothers me about this kid, and I don't know his name, I don't have it in front of me. I don't care about this kid's name because he's not real. At the risk of sounding like that lady that was on the plane, that motherfucker is not real. He's not. He is from Fenton. He's from Fenton, Michigan. Now, for everybody out there that listens to this show and you are not from Michigan, I have some history in Fenton. And that was when I was playing football in high school. And we did 7-on-7s for our non-Americans out there who don't know what 7-on-7s are in American football. It's a passing skeleton. So it's literally just the quarterback, running back, receivers, maybe a tight end against linebackers and defensive backs. So there's just no lineman is all it is. All you do is pass, and you just do a scrimmage that way. We did 7-on-7s my sophomore year of high school, and it was the first time in my life that I popped the fuck off. So much so that I actually was allowed to start. They were like, hey, you're going to start because like you played really, really well. And then my grades sucked. And they're like, hey, you can't play at all this year, but you can be a water boy. And I was like, uh-huh. And I was like, okay. And then I dropped out the next year, and now here we are. Alrighty, folks. What else do I got for you? Hey, here's something. I got my PS5 fixed. I say I got it fixed. My beautiful, beautiful, beautiful girlfriend, as an early birthday / Father's Day present, because my birthday is actually on Father's Day this year, which has happened in the past. But it's just fun this year because my first birthday after becoming a father is also on Father's Day. That's really fun. So as an early present, she got my PS5 fixed. It has been broken for 2 years, literally over 2 years. The HDMI port was all fucked up because I kept bringing it on a plane back and forth from Los Angeles to Chicago. Excuse me. And because I had also switched to PC, like right after it broke, I just never ended up getting it fixed. But lately, ladies and gentlemen, I have been playing PS5 again. I cannot believe how much fun I'm having. And what's cool is it's basically like stepping into a time machine, because all of the stuff that I was playing, 2 years ago, it's still here. So I'm playing some MLB The Show. Dog. I'm a pitcher for the Orioles. I threw 9 perfect innings. 9. I had 16 strikeouts. And I strike out the last batter, and I'm like, let's fucking go. And then I'm watching the cut scene, and all the guys are going back to the dugout. I'm like, wait, whoa. Why isn't Matt Vasgersian going ballistic? I just threw a perfect game. I didn't have any run support. It was 0-0. Dog, I got pulled in the 10th with a perfect game because we had scored 0 runs. I was like, what? And I was like, huh. So that's what I've been up to lately. By the way, Dallas is up. What the fuck? Dallas is up 103-78. Hashtag thanks for coming out, Minnesota. We'll do a whole post-mortem on them on Monday, I'm sure. We'll chat a little bit about Indiana, maybe a little bit too. You know what? In the spirit of me responding to haters, I think I'm going to actually do a little bit more of this on Monday, talk a little bit more in depth about it. Celtics fans listening to this show, are you guys new? Are you motherfuckers new around here? Talking about how I hate the Celtics and how I'm scared to give them credit? Fuck you. First of all, what are you talking about? You new around here? You been around these parts, Sheriff? I'm the same guy. How many times do I have to talk about me winning? It doesn't matter. I don't need to validate myself. I know what I believe, and I know what I think. And I know that you guys are wrong. I like the Celtics. I love them. I would go as far as to say that I love the Celtics. But I might like Dallas more. But that's for Monday's show, folks. That's for a different time. And I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. I hope you all had a good week. Watch Daniel Gafford knock that shit down. Get your points king. 9:08 left in the fourth. Dallas up 104-78. And that's going to do it. We're going to have a Dallas Mavericks Boston Celtics NBA Finals. That's going to feel good. Alrighty, folks, if you're listening to this on Spotify, be sure to rate 5 stars. If you're listening to this on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe, nice little comment for the algorithm. Y'all mean a ton to me. Again, man, it's not lost on me that you guys could spend an hour somewhere else, and you don't. And, another thing Rudy and I were talking about earlier today, audio is very much like having a moment in our culture globally where more people are willing to be trapped with a single person, up to, a couple people for an hour or so. And I think it's interesting. The phenomenon is very interesting that we've sort of, this curve that we're on with audio. And I think, at the risk of sounding hyperbolic, which I think I've already said at some point in this show, it's hard for me to imagine that audio will ever be as big as it currently is. And I know that this show is, for some people, also used as a visual experience, but I only do that for posterity. I don't actually intend for this to ever be this extravagant visual experience. To me, this is an audio experience. I only do the visual because I know some people appreciate it. And for me, it's always about, how do I maximize the medium, and what are the limitations of it, and how do we, where do we go from here? And I try my damn hardest, man, to give you guys a good show every Monday and Friday. And I guess I don't really know what I'm trying to say here, other than I know how many shows there are that you could listen to. Some of them have better audio quality. Some of them have better video quality. I've recorded a lot of these ones recently at night because I'm recording. I recorded them on the heels of these games, and that sucks for lighting. But it is what it is, unfortunately. And your time is the most valuable thing in the world, and it is important that you spend it in the right places and that you spend it wisely. And if you want to, pay me 2 hours a week, there are not enough words for me to articulate what that means to me. So, folks, thank you very, very much for listening. I care about all of you a ton. I will catch you guys in the next one.
Beautiful.
Primary control.
Beautiful.
Primary control.
Beautiful.
Primary control.
Beautiful.